Well, welcome back, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the session on importance of partnerships for empowerment of women's collective. This has been curated by 3IE. I'm extremely excited to have all of you here. This is one of the most important and talked about sessions that we've had till now. So before I move on, I would like to just share that questions and comments are on your chat box. They're on your screen. So at any point, if you have any questions for the speakers, you can type it in there, and we will hold it towards the end of the discussion. Without any delay, we started on time. I'd like to introduce our moderator for today. We have Ms. Marie Gardner, Executive Director, 3IE. She leads the organization's efforts to improve lives in low and middle income countries. This is done through supporting the generation and effective use of high quality and relevant evidence to inform decision making. Now, Marie has also published extensively, including on evaluation of cash transfer programs, evaluation in fragile and conflict affected states, and how to increase the accountability for evidence use and for outcomes amongst development agencies and governments. A very warm welcome, Marie.
Many thanks, Parul, and thanks for those kind words of introduction, and welcome everyone in whichever time zones you may be. I do think we have a lot joining us from India, so good afternoon to you. I am Marie Gardner, as Parul said, the Executive Director of the International Initiative for Impact Evaluation. We lovingly called 3IE and easier to say. And as Parul said, we are a global leader in producing and synthesizing rigorous evidence, and also advocating for the generation and use of quality evidence in development decision making. And we support studies and reviews that examine both what works, but also for whom, why, and importantly, at what cost in low and middle income countries. On behalf of Access Development Services and 3IE, I would like to welcome you very warmly to this Virtual Livelihood Summit session on the importance of partnerships for women's empowerment collectives. Partnerships with multiple stakeholders is mentioned as an important ingredient in scaling and sustaining enterprises, including women's collective enterprises. In the previous panel discussion, my colleagues and partners from 3IE's Swashakt initiative highlighted how linkages, networks, and partnerships can help women's collective enterprises become viable and sustainable and scale up. And picking up from there, this session will go into how rewarding collaborations and partnerships can be created and maintained in practice. So we are confident that our diverse panel today can throw some light on each of these aspects from several different angles. We have with us Alkesh Wadhwani. He's Country Director, Poverty Alleviation at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation's India office. Hi, Alkesh, maybe you can...
Hi.
Yeah, there you are. His portfolio comprises programmatic work in agricultural development, water, sanitation and hygiene, financial services for the poor, and gender equality. So huge remit. Welcome to you. We also have Sridhar Eswaran. He is founder, member of institution and capacity building at Samunati Financial Intermediation and Services Private Limited. Next, we have our three valued Swashakt project partners. So Anjan Nayerlu, or I think I'm allowed to call him Anjan Balem, there he is. He's Vice President for Financial Inclusion and Micro Enterprises at the Basics Consulting and Technology Services Limited in Hyderabad. We also have Anshul Ojha, and that's Anshul. Can you wave? Yeah, there he is. He's founder and chief executive of Desert Resource Center. And then we have, last but definitely not least, our next panelist is Gayatri Rao. There she is. India Program Lead at Imago Global Grassroots. You can read all about these amazing panelists in the Summit Registry of Panelists, where there will be much more information, but I will not go through their extensive and great CVs right now, because we have a discussion to be had. So the discussion will start with all panelists making opening remarks in response to a question that I posed to them. We will then have a moderated discussion and then followed by Q&A. As Farul mentioned, feel free to post questions at all times during the discussion. Very helpful if you can, name the panelist you would like to a response from, if indeed you have a specific panelist you would like a response from. And we will, by the way, take the Q&A session at the end, so that we can make sure we end on time. As I've understood, there is also a real, not virtual, party going on that afterwards. So, which I know that I will not be able to take part in, because I'm based in Oslo, Norway. So a few housekeeping notes. We will be taking audience questions through the Q&A box. And in the event of disruption for any reason, we will reach out to you over email. We also very much encourage you to tweet any questions, points of view, etc. on Twitter. I've seen a lot of activity already on Twitter, so that's fantastic. Excellent. If you could please tag at 3IE News while you tweet, and also if you could use hashtag breaking new ground or hashtag Swashakt. Great. So with that, first up, we would request Anjan, if you could share how women's collective enterprises and their promoting organizations approach building partnerships. Can you give us some instructive examples of exploiting mutual synergies? So over to you, Anjan.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Marie. Actually, we have been supporting Gramin Bazaar program of Bihar SRLM for past 1 year. We have developed a training material to conduct training program for the Gramin Bazaar members who are actually owners of the Kirana stores. They are actually SHG women. So we have developed a simple and illustrative training material for the to train these Kirana shop owners, and it has like several modules on the business skills and soft skills. In the business skills, they have training module on how to develop business plan, bookkeeping, digitization, and financial inclusion, and leadership, and the soft skills decision making. So this training was conducted for the around 300 Kirana shop Kirana women, and Jivika found this material quite useful, and based upon this successfulness, Jivika has decided to replicate this to 62 of their Gramin Bazaars, which around have 2,400 membership. All these are like women members. They run, manage these Kirana shops. So this is one important synergy what we could achieve, accomplish this project actually. So yeah.
Great, thank you very much. Very exciting. Over to you, Anshul, for your thoughts on the same question. How should women's collective enterprises and their promoting organizations approach building partnerships? And great to have concrete examples as well to illustrate your points.
Yeah, thanks, Marie. Thank you, everyone, who's joined. I think I would like to first take a little a macro view on things, and then perhaps we could get in. Put it simply, I feel it is the way we should approach the partnership is basic necessity, to the growth multiplier. And we need to look at these collectively, basic necessity to growth multiplier, and also uniquely as a journey from basic necessity to growth multiplier. And that's how important really the partnerships are today, especially in the case of women collectives. Not just for collectives, but for the promoting organizations, or perhaps the entire ecosphere. You need to bring in all these people together and really put ahead the transformative thoughts, and all of that is going to be possible when we are in partnerships. Of course, we'll have to look at diverse ways of partnerships and various layers of partnerships, not just horizontal or vertical, but really looking at a very circular model of partnership. But then really you need to take a step back and really understand or appreciate that there are so many, I would say, missing links today in this ecosphere. Phenomenal work happening, yet there are many limiting abilities. Again, from the grassroots to the policy or the investment side, there are so many silos which are created, and we are attempting to sort of sit within those silos and bridge them. So how do we really look at those? If I may take little time, if it's okay, I would sort of like to get into just 4 sort of key areas or key vertical which I feel are important to address these blocks, ways through which we could really achieve rapid and lasting transformations, or where these partnerships could really play a critical role. The 4 blocks: A, the processes at the enterprise or at the collective level. We need to look into efficiency optimization. Greener processes is not ambitious, and or a distant ambition anymore. We need to get into greener processes throughout, and we are not looking at just IT technologies or clean energy, but the whole mindset, how we are approaching the processes, how we are designing those processes, and to achieve what. That paradigm shift has to happen now. This is a challenge, this is an opportunity. Things like unique identifier, biomarkers, traceability mechanisms, these are all enablers for for smoothening our operations, streamlining, helping women collectives to sort of take those achieve those momentum. In the previous session, Vijayaji talked about local market. How are you going to achieve localization without you have optimization in the process? So you need to bring those costs down. We have done remarkably well in approaching distant markets. It has worked well. It will keep on happening. There's no doubt about that. But what are the new possibilities, the local markets, and how do you do that? By really optimizing. So these are some spaces in the processes. How are we going to transform the spaces? Finance. How are you going to approach the partnership in finance? The challenge today: access. Everybody's talking about funds and finances, but the form has to change. We need to look at ways how women collectives could, we are talking about massive numbers through state missions or national missions or FPOs, all of that. But what beyond the scaling? How do these collectives really approach capital? Capital for 3 key things, just to sort of quickly. Capital A, which enables risks. So people who are interested in partnerships for risking, how many people are there who are, genuinely interested in, letting women collectives fail? And it's important. if in the urban spaces, if this average rate is anything between 6 to 12% of startups to succeed, why are we not okay with that? So really that level of risk capital is very important for partnerships. The second is innovation. All said and done, we are killing the innovation, and that is happening at multiple levels. The numbers is the most, sort of the strongest killer today. We all talk about numbers, and that's where, the innovation dies. So where do we find capital which promote, innovation? We did a small experimentation. We set up a, small little innovation fund. And what we try to do is really put in money in small, women collectives. We gave, so the story is we gave a little fund to a spice grinding unit, women collective. They failed. That's not important. What is important is the moment they fail, they started on their own attempting to raise alternative funds. So how that, small support pushed them to mainstream, opportunities. And the third in financing is the finance for belief. Nobody today is, or very few people today are financing for showing the trust in the collective. So this is in the financing space. The scaling, again, there is a lot of discussion everywhere around scaling. I would humbly like to, put on the table that scaling is not what we should be looking at. What we should really be looking at is how we could make complex supply side or complex value chains really look at transformation. Scaling is not the answer. Why cannot we have millions of small enterprises running parallelly and offering local solutions? We can, but what is required is how do we ensure quality? How do we ensure, those small little things which can give you those experiential, moments when you're going out and paying for a service or for a product. So really, how do we reimagine scaling and completely and decisively is something we need to sort of look into partnerships and the kind of partnerships we want to forge in. How do we look at not just the 10 top cities but the next 50 cities to access those markets? Those are some important areas which are which we need to sort of look into instead of just putting scaling in terms of numbers. The fourth and my final point is the institutions. We need a lot of institutions. Whatever is happening is brilliant, but we need many, many more institutions. Simply because many will fail and many will succeed, and we need to embrace both. But then we also need a lot of promoting institutions. There's a lot of work happening through missions and NGOs and incubators, but we need so many more. There are two important things which are, which we need to consider sort of in the way we are going to forge partnership. And then I'll give you one example. How the institutions enable the ownership, and then B, it changes the mindsets of women from an active producer, manufacturer to, be a decision maker. Institutions are also required not just sort of for enabling women collective, but also to enable leaders who could facilitate that entire process. So that's a big gap. One, and my last again point is we need, beyond NGOs, beyond missions, now what we need is innovation promotion organizations. These IPOs, hundreds of IPOs, could really work at bridging that gap. NGOs have a limitation. They are phenomenal in terms of mobilization, in terms of organizing communities, in terms of skilling. But what do you do with those after that? When you cross that threshold, and this is the kind of experiment that we are currently doing. Under Swashakt, where we are in the off-farm space, we are looking at crafts incubation hub as a model. How these incubators or sustained support agencies could, be accessed by women collectives, and they could really go to these, incubators or innovation centers for various kinds of support. So this is one thing which could be a game changer if we really advocate for this, if we strategize for this, and then put in, all of those other things like processes, finances, and scales to support these innovation centers. You also asked about how the promoting organizations should look at it. I think the most important part for promoting organizations is to take a step back after a certain point and really avoid the temptation of end-to-end supporting it, or ensuring that they sort of these women collectives are managed on some sort of liquid oxygen. If they have to die, they have to die. Let them rebuild. There's no, there shouldn't be a shame accepting that this collective is not working. Maybe it will work tomorrow again, but we have to have that patience and we have to support. So I'll stop here. But yeah, thanks.
Wow, that's some very forward-looking and silo-breaking ways of looking at partnerships. I think you really put a lot on the table for the rest of the discussion and conversation we'll have. So thank you very much. We will come back. I'm sure, and I hope panelists will be starting to pick up on each other's comments, etc., throughout the discussion. Now, over to you, Gayatri. Can you share your learning and on building partnerships for women's collective enterprises, please?
Thank you, Marie. And first of all, thanks for organizing this session. It's a huge opportunity to learn from this panel. So to address your question, I would like to also, similar to Anshul, just step back and also complement a few things that were shared earlier as well. So our key learning has been that partnerships are not really discrete, but we look at partnerships as a continuum, which allows innovation that has taken place at the grassroots, at the collective enterprises, to move to scale. So partnerships actually play an important role in this journey, from building sort of a proof of concept at the grassroots level, and then taking it forward through or to scale through government organizations or through the market. And in these, I think at each level, all of the partnerships play a key and important role. So at the first stage, it is the grassroots organizations or the collective enterprises which sort of foster the innovation at this collective level. And then the philanthropies or funds like the Swashakt come in to play this nurturing role, where they're able to, something that I think Anshul also pointed out, play this role of providing the de-risking capital for these innovations to actually experiment, develop their proof of concept in a way that is not just effective, but also cost effective, which is key to take these interventions forward. And then this provides, the ability for the government or the market, that is these key players who have the resources and the distribution channels to actually play that multiplier role and increase the outreach and reach of these benefits. So this is the way that we will look at partnerships, and I would like to illustrate with the sort of work that we are doing through the Swashakt program, where we are taking a proof of concept that has been implemented by a partner organization, Seva, that is Rudy, which is an enterprise of women, which integrates the local value chain and increases the participation of women in the local value chains. And we are taking this and building a proof of concept for the NRLM ecosystem and for the community institutions of NRLM. So through this opportunity. We're nurturing the multiple innovations that are there. That is, the technology, the business model, the capacity building that has been implemented by Seva, and we are providing the critical support for then Imago and Seva to then build this model into a scalable model and a replicable model through community institutions. So, and another key learning for us, which we have learned a lot from our partner organization as well, is the partnerships have to be collaborative and creative and meet people where they are. This allows for the partnerships to be adaptive, to then achieve scale, and also keep the core of the partnership, which is the collective enterprise and the women in the collective enterprise at the center of the scaling and of all of the efforts that are being put in. Yeah, and here again, I would like to acknowledge some of the other key learnings that the previous panelists had also pointed out, which is allowing for innovations to foster, allowing for some of these innovations to fail and learn is a critical role that partnerships play. So yeah, I would like to stop there.
Thank you so much, and I think it's already interesting to see a lot of similarities in views here, and just this idea of fostering innovation, but also of and supporting sort of de-risking, but at the same time, what's talked about, sort of not keeping partnerships on sort of artificial oxygen, as was said earlier. So I think the very interesting. Now let me turn to you, Alkesh. From the point of view of the donors supporting women's collective enterprises and also the Swashart program, what do you look for in establishing strong partnerships? And maybe you can sort of reflect on what you see as the red flags, or what are the sort of and what are the green lights, the positive things you're seeing?
Yeah, thanks, Mary. So, I thought maybe I'll take an example of a district. We work in one of the poorer states in India. It's aspirational districts, which makes it, again, a poor district and a poor state, which we are supporting. And we did a survey there, and we found that the average income from farming of the women farmers there was about 1,600 rupees a month, which is about $20, right? So it's like really, really low. So now you put these women who are earning 1,600 rupees a month at an average from farming, and yes, they have a non-farming income equal to roughly of the same order of magnitude. You put them into collect SHGs, and then they become PGs, and the PGs form into FPOs. Now the problem is that this is essential. Without having some collective bargaining, some aggregation, it's very difficult to get any discounts, any aggregation, access markets, etc. But even then, I mean, if I look at a report that I think Azim Premji came out on FPOs, that half the FPOs have a capital of less than 1 lakh rupees, right? So you have women who are obviously, if you're earning 1,600 rupees a month, don't have too much land, don't have the best practices possible, are stuck in low productivity roles. And you're putting them together with capital of less than 1 lakh rupees. How much can they achieve? It's just not feasible, right? The computer you are on will cost 1 lakh, I'm sure. So your computer will be the capital of that whole FPO. So given that, it's, you just have to go in for partnerships. And the crux is how much the promoting organizations believes in partnerships. The more the promoting organization believes that they can do everything themselves, I think our fundamental belief is then it's not scalable. They are never, that the promoting organization is never going to get the resources that hundreds of partners can get for you, because all of them are experts in their field. So the promoting organization plays a very important role. One role, of course, they play as Anjanelu said, is to mobilize the community. even Anshul, I think, said that they can, they are also paid by either SFAC, many of them by SFAC or by NABARD, to do all the work around the legal structure, getting membership, getting the women membership, doing the board meetings, blah, 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 blah. But that doesn't build the business. That's just a must do, right? And then, yes, each promoting organization has skills in some areas. For example, I think earlier members spoke about, okay, they might have skills in saying, okay, we understand how to do retailing of products or whatever. Others might understand package of practice for crops, for horticulture, for rice, but you can't do everything, right? So the main theme is what kind of partnerships you can build. And the example that I'll give you of this partner we have, basically in that one district has about 35 partners in 1.5 years. So they brought 35 partners to the table. And I think that's what makes them so valuable, which is they see their role as intermediating between the women who will not have access to these partners and getting these partners on board. And the partners will not come if they have to deal with one woman, because it's not worth their while to try and pick up produce from 1 acre of land, right? So it's only worth their while if 1,000 women come together and there's enough produce so that it's worth the while for these partners to either provide them training, provide them inputs, pick up their products, do the market linkages, or even sell inputs, right? And the first thing in FPO, I think the simplest thing they can do is to set up an input shop. So once they set up an input shop, the prices are typically, they'll get 10%, 15% lower, and they price and they pass on that benefit to their members of lower prices. So I'm just going to read out the kind of partnerships they got, because I think that's what's really important, right? So this is farming. This is basic farming, adding horticulture to cereals, some vegetables, etc. Nothing more complex. So as one example, and then there's dairy examples, there's non-farm examples. So in input businesses, they got Bayer, Yatra, UPL, and FMC, which are well-known organizations that will sell you all the input products you need for horticulture. In the market linkages, they've got partners which are Reliance Retail, Enam, Go Stop, Apida, D-Hart, and Mother Dairy, right? So similarly, they've got a set of partners in technology and infrastructure. So for example, there's a proposal for one player to establish a storage unit there, and with the loan given by the government, because the government has a scheme which is the Agri Infra Fund, right? Similarly, on credit services, one of the members on your panel, which is Samunati, is a partner there who's giving loans to FPOs. The other one is Avanti Finance. Similarly, there's training and capacity building. Now, what the good news is that a lot of these firms like Bayer or Yara also provide the package of practices and how to use not only their products, but how women can improve their productivity of their farms. So many of the same players are also providing training and capacity building, right? And then we have a few in information technology, so that there's some technology that the women can use. So I could go on and all, right? And we have a different list for the dairy FPOs that we work in that same district. And we have a list for non-farm that we are supporting some woodwork and garments, etc. And the partners there are different clearly, because the partners in woodwork will be some design firms that understand woodwork and are offering their services, right? And the good news is that apart from the private sector, there are a lot of government agencies who also have skills to provide inputs to many of these sectors. So we have to tie up with those government firms too. Now, there are two types of government firms. One set of government firms that provide inputs in terms of expertise. Like I said, it could be design, it could be just package of practices, it could be better seeds, and so on and so forth. But the second is that the government has a whole set of schemes which provide effectively either subsidized or free inputs to nearly every sector under the sun, right, including farming. So if you want to do micro irrigation, you have to, if you just leave it to the FPO, it will be very tough for them to access these micro irrigation schemes, right? But if you access them, then you get a 50-80% discount, etc. Or even a simple Kisan credit card, which millions of farmers already have. But you'll find that, okay, half the women in these collectives, because they are from the aspirational districts, which are more, I mean, I don't want to use I don't know if backward is the right word, but certainly low income generating, the poorer districts, right? So poorer is a better word. Many of them don't have Kisan credit cards, right? So you need someone to mediate between them, and the partner is the government or the bank who's giving the Kisan credit cards and them fill up their forms, etc., etc. So if you add up, like my view is that the POPIs or the promoting institutions, more than half their role is to ensure these tie-ups and see that they work.
Thank you very much. I'm wondering, before going on to the next panelist, does there any of the other panels want to sort of add a question or have a comment to very thoughtful and also, you know, maybe somewhat provocative also comments from Alkesh? Anyone has any question back or comments just before we're moving on? I'm trying to get a bit of a dialogue going.
Sorry, Anjan.
Anjan, I think you're on mute. Yeah.
Yeah. I have a small presentation. Actually, I thought of coming back after listening to everybody. So can I make that presentation, or this our experience in with working with Grameen Bazaar? So.
Yes. Okay. So just because your first introduction was very short, and I
That's right.
think you had one. So yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you.
And please do keep it to, you used 1 minute already, so in your first.
No, I will make it very short. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, this is about a short presentation about our support to the Grameen Bazaars. You can see a Grameen Bazaar actually promoted by the Jivika, where we are providing technical support with support from the TIE. So this is where actually the Kirana shop owners, which are HSG women, they come and procure quality goods and then supply to the consumers. The objective is both Grameen Bazaar, which is like supermarket, and Kirana stores become viable and sustainable with the profit making. At the same time, they provide quality goods at reasonable prices. So yeah, based upon our work, not only in supporting the Grameen Bazaar, in and other states also, we are supporting Bank Saki program, actually BC agents, where they provide women SHG member. They become BC agent of the banks, provide banking services and products in the villages, and they will be monitored and supported by the SHG federations, a community-based microfinance institution. So these are the advantages what we have seen in the for the women collective enterprises. So as other members also pointed, even Akhilesh and other people mentioned, they get the initial facilitation support from Jivika for networking of these all Kirana women together to form a block level association. They form they promote this Grameen Bazaar with the support from the Jivika, that SRL project of the, and because of this government partnership, whether it is government or private, they will get a political and social acceptance within the like official circle, even from the community, and they actually leverage the government programs and market linkage and the funds also. Initially, Jivika is providing some around 20 lakh rupee for promoting each Grameen Bazaar with around 40 Kirana women actually. So they get capacity building support, not only, as I said, business skills and even soft skills also. Where actually from basic ILRT, we are supporting in developing the training material, which is actually, and delivering the training material. So, and they replicate this training material to the larger areas, Jivika. So even the linkages with the technology, onboarding of the other stakeholders, because for each project, there should be numeral number, you have to deal with the many number of stakeholders like banks, even the FMCGs, all these people, they may not, collective enterprises may not know all these people. Because of the partnerships will bring and introduce this to the women collective enterprises. If the challenges, what we actually saw that in the field, because this Kirana shop women and even board members, Grameen Bazaar board members, they are actually low financial and digital literacy. It's very partners have to deal with put a lot of efforts to enhance their digital literacy, and even they don't have access to credit because they don't have credit history. this Kirana women. And the ownership and accountability are also very major issues of the, when the women collective enterprise come together, who is the owner? Because they have employed some people. So employees are taking more responsibility compared to the board members. So they, in the partners, any FMCG or companies, they want to come on partnership. They will see this, who is whether it is sustainable or not. Most of the time, they're skeptical to enter into the partnership. This is the one major challenge. And these are the most of these Kirana shops and even Gramin Bazaar as of now are informal business entities. So for private partnerships, especially, they want to enter partnership. They need to have like a license, registration, license, PAN number, GSTN. So this is one challenge the partners are facing. So, but on the other hand, there are a lot of untapped opportunities. So because as like other members said, there is a SHG products and FPO products are there within the village. They need some sort of platform to sell their products, because SHGs are engaged in development of these local local food called sattu, and even agarbattis. They also produce like honey. And this type of food products are papad, this type of things they make, but they don't have a place where to sell these products. So this Gramin Bazaar type of collective enterprises will become a platform for them to sell. Even Kirana shops within the villages also, they can become the like platform. And even there is a advantage of government initiatives in financial inclusion and digital promotion, digital payments promotion. And even private companies like Jio, they want to have rope in Kirana shops, thousands of numbers. In start with, they want to have 56,000 Kirana shop. They want to rope in to and provide supply their goods. Around 300 to 400 goods normally they identified. So they want to supply these goods to Kirana shops, and they will share the profit equally between Kirana shop and Jio. Yeah, this and the way we can actually strengthen these women collective enterprises, as I already said, business skills enhancement and soft skills to deal with the, especially negotiation skills are very important to deal with the organizations like ITC, Haldiram, FMCG companies, even local distributors. In fact, some of these Gramin Bazaars, these women collective enterprises, they entered into partnership with the Patanjali and even local rice millers, oil companies. And digitization of business operations is very important actually. So it's for billing, training, inventory, mentoring. So all these digitization need to be done. Recently, this MasterCard has conducted a study, September 2021. They found actually digitization is very important for growth of the micro and small businesses, for the penetration, even financial inclusion. So, and even they need to have this MIS dashboard with the reports, with data analytics. Data analytics, so they can to the MIS dashboards, they can actually look at which Kirana shop is running well, what is the sales, whether they are in profit or not, whether they have access to credit or not, to fill the shop with the stock. So this type of reports, they can actually, Gramin Bazaar can review and provide support to their member Kirana shops. And even data analytics, they can understand which product is selling fast. This type of data analytics, how to upsell and cross sell. So these type of data analytics reports from the MIS actually they can use. And one of the major problem we identified, these board members of the Gramin Bazaar, again, they have the shops and at the same time, they're also supporting and running the collective enterprise. They need to be compensated. Otherwise, they cannot spend a lot of time in providing support to the women collective enterprise. This is one major problem we come across even SHG federations, any community-based microfinance institution. So these board members give they are expected to give free time. So which is not possible. For some time it is fine, but it's long term. It will affect the quality of the institution actually.
Thank you, Anjan.
Yeah,
We have to wrap
Sure.
up there.
Sure.
I think you highlighted an important challenge there at the end as well. But thanks for giving that concrete example.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Sridhar. Now you've been silent for a long time. Let me invite you in and also reflect. Bring in what you've heard from others as possible. What challenges do you see in forming partnerships? And how do we navigate them, particularly obviously for women's collective enterprises, as we're discussing here?
Thanks, Mary. Good evening, all. Sammunati, I will talk about two approaches to women collectives that we engage with. One, we engage with women collectives through an FPO. That means all the FPOs are managed by women. Plus, we also engage with NGOs and couple of community-based organizations, and through them we get connected to the SHG group members and we give them a lot of services. So that is a two-way approach which Sammunati follows. And one of the important thing, what as a challenge that we face is, especially when we engage with women-led FPOs, basically, just to give an example, if you talk of you give any 10 people and give them a blank paper and a drawing pencil, tell them to draw a farmer, invariably everybody will draw a farmer's image, men, basically. But if you see on the field, there are a lot of women actually who go and do the entire cultivation work, right? A couple of main challenges over and above what we have seen is the lack of awareness, right? So that is one of the important challenges that we have seen at the women partnerships. And also, since we work on the agriculture sector, the entire value chain they don't understand. They know only a broken activity which they are familiar with, but they don't understand the entire value chain, or their participation is only to the broken value chain which they are comfortable with. They are not aware of how to get finance, they are not aware of how to get to market the product. So these are some of the challenges that we face. Main thing is on the personal and the social challenges. We also have a lot of factors which goes into like the geography, the culture, the age, the asset ownership, and very importantly, the security aspect of it, right? The safety net that we call. So, the moment we do a lot of these capacity programs, it becomes easy for us to get into it with any of the men-led collectives. But the moment we go into a women-led, it becomes tough for us because the women play a couple of roles. Their primary role is the household operator and they are a caregiver. They have to take care of the children, they have to take care of the household, the elderly people. So these are some of the things that we have to navigate when we want to start engaging with them, right? These are some couple of things. And at Sammunati, we have a gender framework which we deploy. And we also engage with these farmer producer organizations where we have got a approach called AMLA, Aggregation, Market Linkage, Advisory. So aggregation is nothing else. We help the collectives to aggregate the demand and we support them by giving them access to finance, working capital, so that they are able to do that activity. Market linkages, because of the work what they have done, because of the activities on the procurement that they have done, we also support them to get some institutional buyer so that they are able to sell their produce. And very importantly, on the advisory for them to scale, we give them a lot of capacity building programs. But these programs are not like, you look at, okay, we did so many programs, number of trainings and how many women participations. No, we actually measure the outcome. So all our training programs are, how to measure the outcomes. So we assist them in preparing a business plan. We assist them in terms of how to prepare an income and expense statement. We support them on all the small digitization rather than doing it in a manual thing. So these are some of the initiatives which Sammunati does as far as our partner engager, especially with the women collectives. I'll stop here and I will come back later when there is another questions.
Thank you. No, that's very interesting, and of course, very, very promising that you the focus actually on then measuring the outcomes of the capacity building. That's extremely key. In view of time, we'll go straight into now the second take you will all get at talking about this important topic. Let me start with you, Anshul. You have supported women's craft collectives in remote desert zones to work with private retail partners. So, so what have been the advantages of working in such partnerships?
I would say a very, very, very rewarding and very safeguarding. Urmul Desert Crafts as a model has really come up together, working with over 5,000 women, in the Western Rajasthan. And what you see is a very, very structured, brand, but not a singular, entity. There are so many different producer organizations or collectives, again, formed by various collectives, and they come together into this marketing front end, which is Urmul Desert Crafts. And what really happens is, while the developmental processes, the organization or the Urmul group organizations, they continue the mobilization support, all the various strategic inputs. The real work of market facing is actually done by a thoroughly professional team. Now, there are two important lessons here. First, you need to enable systems where even women leaders from outside are welcome, are promoted, and given the decision-making power. There is a big, confusion or hesitation, that it should be always local, artisanal leadership which should be promoted, which is fine, which is perfectly all right, which is perhaps all that we are all striving for. But then, how do you enable systems which could also open up for others to come up and go deep in there? So this marketing interface then able to work with various private sector players, even public procurement systems, and really provide that cushioning, enabling the artisans to sort of have a very accessible aspiration, right? So if today the artisans of this network looks at their chief executive, who's very much accessible to them in the villages, they get inspired. Okay, that here's a woman who is, who has come down and is working with. So that is on the back end. On the front end, it gives the much needed confidence to the big players, to the markets, that this is a professionally managed system where we can really, put in long-term commitments. So if today global leaders are working with these collectives, it is because there is a certain stability, there is a certain cushioning. So really how, the systems or the structures de-risk and, transform, enable the collectives. So that is one example. If I could also take quick 30 minutes, Mary, is that okay if I take another?
Seconds, not minutes, yes.
Perfect. So I actually wanted to come back to the innovation center model that I talked about. And at Urmul, what we did is the reason why we set up Desert Resource Center as an enabler or ecosystem facilitation organization is simply because we realized that Urmul group organizations were facing challenges in taking things to the next stage, in terms of collectives, and how a dedicated strategic organization could enable those. So the very reason why such organizations, add value to this is the testimony of all that we are doing. But yeah, thanks.
Great, thank you very much. And sort of I was left also with this idea of this. This sort of professionally managed, yet very much inclusive. I think that was a very excellent point that came out also what you were bringing out in the example. Now let me get to you, Alkesh. Let's talk about the untapped opportunities for enterprise partnerships. What in your mind are some promising strategies that can help overcome constraints that women's collective enterprises face, like limited market access and limited experience?
Yeah. So, I don't have anything much more to say because to really succeed, like we said, women have to get into these partnerships to tap markets. The partnerships are pretty well known. I mean, if you need to tap forward linkages, then you kind of know that, let's say, if it's in the farm sector, that you have to either sell to the local processor or you have to sell to your local mandi beyond the trader that you would typically sell to in your village, or you would sell to one of the larger players like retail, Reliance Retail. So I don't know if there's any real magic here. I mean, the problem is that all this takes a lot of work, a lot of skills, and to be able to succeed, as one of the panelists said, you need good productivity. Otherwise, you're not being, you won't get too much value from your output. So it's just being systematic about this and doing it again and again across multiple FPOs than any, revolutionary view I can come up with.
And just a follow-up, do you think, I mean, as Anshu mentioned in his first comments, I mean, sort of there seem to maybe be opportunities to think, I don't know if we leapfrog, but to think about how to do things in processes in a green way, reach other markets, etc. Any thoughts on? You said there's no magic bullet, but are there some? Are there some possibilities along those lines that you see and that could be nurtured?
Yeah. So, I think you need to bring in, there's no doubt you need to bring in technology. That's not, I mean, it could be about partnerships, but it also is just doing the right package of practices. So, for example, in one of the projects we are doing in Orissa, where we are in one of the projects there, we are supporting women to make on bitter gourd, right? And there we find you can actually raise productivity by a factor of 8 to 10, right? By doing a whole set of package of practices, from micro irrigation to having trellises to having better seeds. Now, none of this is complex. It's just that you're dealing with women who are so far in the hinterland and doing on such small project sizes of 1-2 acres that they don't have this basic knowledge that people would typically have. So you kind of say, okay, if you get an agricultural production cluster going, you have many of the women there, then they all do this, so someone can come and train them, and over 2-3 cycles they can move to increase their productivity literally by 8x. So it's not complex, right? I mean, it's known, but you have to get to that place in the remote village, aggregate the women, get them, mobilize them, go through 2-3 cycles. In the first cycle, maybe they'll do some basics of just better seeds. In the second cycle, they will add the micro irrigation if you can get them a loan. So it's all a process of organizing and putting things together. And how do you do this for millions of farmers or women farmers is challenging. But these are the kind of things you can do, which can have huge impact, because 8 times is no joke.
Excellent, great, thank you. Let me turn to you, Gayatri, on the issue of strengthening existing mechanisms. How can existing linkages and partnerships be strengthened for sustaining collective enterprises and also promoting women's livelihoods and economic empowerment? So some examples could be, is it through more proofs of concept, through more hand-holding support, or other things that you can think of?
Yes, I think I'll also build on what the other panelists have also shared. And in terms of strengthening the partnerships itself, I would like to reinforce that these partnerships have to be co-creative, collaborative, and the incentives also at some level have to align for these partnerships to be sustainable in terms of what they are providing to the collective enterprises and what the collective enterprises are able to sustain and give back. In terms of other aspects that have been mentioned, looking at partnerships or multiple partnerships, also focusing on local partnerships that are more attuned to the context of the collective enterprises where they're based and the challenges that they face, whether it's through innovations in the business model or innovations like using better technology to facilitate things that like improve productivity or production are critical to actually strengthen and sustain these partnerships. And another bit that also was mentioned earlier is building the capacity of the collective enterprises also and increasing awareness to build this network of partners, whether it is interacting with the market players, having an intermediary who can support them in sort of marketing better, or even in terms of on the demand side, having institutional tie-ups in terms of supplying to them. So these are important partnerships that would strengthen the ecosystem as a whole and support this continuation of the partnership and not just the one-off. Lastly, I would just like to point out that which Mr. Anjaneyar had also brought up, seeing the government also as a key partner in both the production side as well as the market side, and the role of other organizations in one, initiating the tie-up and also strengthening it would be some of the ways in which these partnerships can then work together in a more sort of efficient and effective manner.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Let me bring on in then Sridhar before soon we'll come into a Q&A session. We think you might also sort of maybe help us understand this. That in a sense, how can we help enterprises move from an enablement model to one where the collective can essentially function in an open market competitively? Several panelists have brought this up as what needs to happen, but it's sort of not quite clear how that is done in the best way. And what is the future of partnerships, including those that your Sammunati helps to promote?
Yeah, thanks, Mary. I think one of the important points which every panelist spoke about is technology, productivity, package of practices, right? Now, what we at Sammunati we do is we bring this to the women collectives. Now, there is a technology, there is a product which is available, there is a solution which is available. How do you bring it to the women collectives, the farmers? Now, there is a risk element to that. So when Sammunati is doing this particular pilot, we take the risk. It's not that we pass on the risk to the women collectives. We take the risk, assuring them if there is something going wrong, we will take the responsibility. That's how we start the relationship with these partners, and we bring in all the technologies to them so that they are able to do it efficiently and they understand the benefits of it. And there are 4 or 5 critical important information that we do. One is the information sharing should be always there within the collectives. Second, there should be an asset ownership, because what they do, they need to know they are owning the assets. Plus, there should be some mobility and visibility with what they do, right? It cannot be a one-sided direction. We should always be, capacity building training should be on all these dimensions. What is doing is, when you do that, end of the day, they are able to take decisions independently. That is what is very, very important. So that is what we also encourage by all the trainings. And we see that our engagement with them on all these elements bring more ownership and they are also able to move into the higher equilibrium in the supply chain. So they reach the next level. So this is very, very important rather than. And one of the important things what we do is within the collectives in an FPO, we also nominate some 10 to 15 women members who can be a progressive entrepreneurs and who can take some business risk. So we encourage them to do that activity so that they are able. So that way, as I said, we at Samunati, we engage them in all levels. At the same time, all the latest technologies, we take the risk rather than telling them, the risk is on you. So when you take the risk, we are able to implement it much faster. So that's what has been Samunati's approach, to recognize them and see that, they are able to come up to the next level and, they are sustainable. Yeah.
For us, actually, so the sustainability and the empowerment of these women collective enterprises should be start from the day one of the promotion. So actually, otherwise, what happens is even as Anshul rightly mentioned. So the promoting agencies, especially when you are working with private government support partnership. So there is a possibility of killing the innovation and implement the program according to their own local context. Once the capacity buildings program is done, so give the freedom to the women collective enterprises to deal with the partners. It purely depends upon the business and need, not because of the imposed by external agencies. It should be based upon what exactly they need. If they want to establish a linkage with a FMCG company, let them deal. But only this promoting agency will play a role of coach or mentor, not actually interfering to them. So let them experience, let them know, understand, deal with the distributors, corporate and even the banks to get the access to the credit. In addition to that, actually, this partnership also, they need to be, these women collective enterprises within the village, within the block. There are a lot of other agencies, women collective enterprises developed in the other form, like FPOs are there, even BC agents are there, SHG federations are there. Each one play their own role. If they want actually cash in, cash out, they can go to Bank Saki, which is SHG member. Actually, she can provide the services. But there is no link between women collective enterprises, which is dealing with one sort of activity, and other federation or collective. So SHG federation can provide credit and saving services, even the link with the insurance. They need to be linked between these various agencies, community-based organizations within the given area, and then they can actually have this partnership, and they can also support a local vendor development program. That's what actually, when we observed at the Gramin Bazaar level, we have provided guidance to them. So if you support local vendors, that too SHG women members, their margins are high. For example, if they want to buy a product, papad, for example, by a corporate company, it is like and the local SHG product, it's like 40% margin they can get, this women collective enterprise. At the same time, the papad developed by local vendors is according to the taste of the local people. The pickles, papads are like whatever food products. So that is that type of freedom to be given to the women collective enterprises to take a decision, all these partners, based upon their business need. So that's what actually.
Great, thank you, Anjan. So we have a lot on the table, and we have now 20 minutes to take a few questions. We gotten a few questions from the audience, and also I would love. I mean, I think you all have heard from each other. You're the experts. I'm not, and so if you could sort of in your answers, you could also sort of address one or two of the questions that I will read up in a moment. But also anything that you sort of have heard from other panelists where you actually maybe see things differently, or you want to emphasize and agree with it. But it's more fun if you disagree, as you know. So if we can do it that way, that would be great. Let me read to you a couple of questions. from the audience. So there's one which asks, what is needed to bring quality in these partnerships and to see that they are sustained and adapt with time to survive and grow? Then there's another one, how important are innovations for these partnerships? In technology, structural, and going beyond institutional support. And then there's another one. Innovations have to be the neural base for the partnerships. Well, so it's along the same lines. Without them, without which sustaining them may be difficult. So it's a claim, but I guess you can sort of debate it. Partnerships should be about the North Star. The rest is all the functions of the same. Let me see, what else do we have here? For this ecosystem sustainability, what is the next level beyond interventions? I think some of the questions you will be understanding better than I do, I think. So let me see how you respond. And then a question for Sridhar: how do they nominate the progressive members in the collective? And then one thing that I would like to hear from some of you, I think Anshul, you spoke about it, and Gayatri as well. But this this idea of let's not keep things artificially alive. But when do we know whether we're doing that? I mean, when do we know that we supported something enough that if it's still not thriving, we should let it go? I mean, it seems to me like a very difficult decision, and I'd love to hear more about that. So so let me just let each of you, please do not respond to all of these, just you yourself take, you get the drift of the questions and take a few minutes, max 3 really to respond. So let me start with you, Gayatri.
Right. So, just taking one of the questions and something, Marie, that you also pointed out in terms of sustainability of the partnerships and how do we ensure that they continue. So, one bit I think which Anjaneyulu also had talked about is the mentorship, the capacity building that the promoting organizations provide to these collective enterprises to then form partnerships, which is the initial step. And after that, it needs to be taken on or taken forward through a more a process of incentives being aligned, them reacting well to the market requirements and needs. So what I would say is what is important is the initial mentorship and the proof of concept, which demonstrates what exactly works, or how this partnership can be formed. What are the ways in which the capacity building or mentorship support can be provided to the collective enterprises, and which work then in a very in a way that allows for continuous exchange and adaptation without the hand-holding support. And of course, for this, the initial hand-holding support is crucial. And also to point out the need for monitoring and to establish that these interventions work, also to sort of establish what doesn't work, which then allows for a more, let's say, not initially organic, but after that, the collective enterprises take it forward in a more organic way.
Excellent. Let me pass it next. Thank you to Sridhar, please.
Yeah, Mary, I will take the question which is directed to me. So basically, the question is, how do we nominate the progressive members in the collective? So basically, we actually don't nominate. Basically, whenever we do any capacity building program or a business training program or an entrepreneurship program, so when it is conducted to the large group members, we do get a lot of queries. And that is how we identify the woman who wants to be part of this initiative and they wanted to set up something on their own. So just to give an example, I will give you 3 examples. When we conducted such trainings, there was 1, 2, 3 groups who were actually doing a basic activity. They wanted to get into a value-added activity by getting into a mini processing, and that helped them to do the marketing of their product in the local village only. So we facilitated the training, we helped them how to prepare a business plan. Then accordingly, we also gave them access to finance so that they are able to do that processing unit and they were able to sell it down. So that way we got a request from the member farmers and we supported them. In some of the other activity, which was basically through a community-based organizations, 2 SHG group members, we were doing one livestock program. 2 of them came forward and said, we would like to set up our own processing unit because we are already good in milk aggregation. We would like to set up a mini dairy. So we help them in, again, preparing a business plan. What is the milk aggregation? What is that you will do? So this is how we engage with them and we give them the, so nomination comes from them. Plus, they know the collective, they know very clearly their strengths, right? And that is how it is. Not everybody will be able to take that risk, right? So people who are willing in the collective and they wanted to scale to the next level, we identify them basis their interaction with us and accordingly we give the support to them. And just to give a last example, in one of the women collectives board of directors meeting, when we were talking about this, one of the board of directors wanted to set up one provisional store in the same village where she lives in. So that's how we helped her doing this setup and we gave them the finance and the market connect and they were able to do it. So that's how we engage with these collectives. The interest has to come from them and we give them the handholding. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Over to you. Yes, Anjan, over to you. And we have to stick to just a couple of minutes, 2 minutes.
Yeah. Regarding innovation, actually we introduced SBI YONO Merchant app. So actually this in the Gramin Bazaar. So by using this merchant app, YONO Merchant app, they can Gramin Bazaar can accept like digital money, transfer of money from the Kirana shop owners. And this will help the Kirana shop owners no need to carry cash to the block headquarters, which is a little far away from their villages. And they need not worry about the exact change. If they give the cash, there is no possibility of like some 20 rupees, 30 rupees. So they can actually they can make cashless payment at their Gramin Bazaar. At the same time, we suggested the Kirana shop owners also, the SHG women manage Kirana shops. So they can actually, even though they receive, some part they receive through the QR code, because we introduced this QR code at the Kirana shop level. But most of the things are transactions are happening in cash. They can deposit their cash at their local BC Saki agent and make the digital money, and they can pay at the Gramin Bazaar. And this will also help over a period of time by looking at their bank account transactions, because at the Kirana shop level also, we suggested them to open the bank account. All these transactions will be recorded in the bank account. This will become basis for the Gramin Bazaar as well as the Kirana shop owner to provide credit, because credit is one major problem we observed in the baseline survey. So that is why they are unable to invest money in the shop to fill the stock. So this is, I don't say this innovation because it's happening many places, but we introduced this to the Gramin Bazaar. And other than this, we also like digitization, digital training modules, e-learning modules, we suggested to them, and we are working on that so that they can actually, because this Kirana shop owners, we try to call them for the training program for bookkeeping and even for the business skills, business plan development. So, but they are unable to give the time for the classroom training program. If it is mobile-based training modules, they can actually learn these training modules at their own pace. So these e-learning modules. So we have that expertise, and we are actually trying to introduce these innovations at the Kirana shop and Gramin Bazaar level. That's what.
Excellent. No, thanks. Very exciting and nice concrete examples of innovations, but mostly about taking on new technology for efficiency reasons. That's great. Let me turn to you, Anshul.
Yeah, I think this question around the innovation and partnerships. I'll give you example of how Urmul's livelihood portfolio initiative. It was not for the actually desire of any social enterprise, but actually as a disaster mitigation or response to the great drought of '88, and how people were literally jobless. There was hardly anything for them to eat, and off-farm intervention was visualized like that. The innovation first, there was or to diversify the product. The partnership happened with National Institute of Design, or like similar organizations. More partnerships came in when the requirement for capital happened. As markets expanded, there was product diversification. So innovations at product, structure, processes, all of those. But then, or what you are asking, how do you know when, something goes obsolete? Well, you don't need to do much. The markets are brutal. They will tell you. And something exactly what happened, a couple of groups really tried out simply because they were just, they were not doing anything innovative. There was process of quality, and suddenly they experienced a remarkable decline in their revenues, which eventually meant that the artisans were not getting enough, and which meant that the artisans started looking for alternative jobs, right? Meaning the shift from artisanry to the other spaces, which is a very alarming thing for, of course, the enterprise, but then also for those families, because mostly they would be shifting for other labor intensive jobs. So the point really is the partnerships are, in our case, in our experience, driven by North Star. Is what are we really trying to achieve out of that partnership, or how that specific partnership is really enabling a specific function in the bigger ambit. Or a recent example where we are initiating work with Camel, value chain, under Camel partnership, and how there are various partner organizations who have come, some to support the milk value chain around Camel, some to support the crafts value chain around the Camel, some to support the policy work. The North Star is how we are able to conserve a breed which has lost almost 70% of its numbers in the last 30 or 20 years. So the point is, the North Star is important in our experience.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Let me finally turn to you, Alkesh. And there's also, I think there's this additional question for you here, which I'm just going to. Just give me a second.
Yeah, do you find any untapped?
Do you see it?
Do you find any untapped opportunities to ramp up partnerships among women's collectives, enterprises, and organizations that promote them? And are there any linkage development models which are worth exploring?
And I would like to, if I could just add a question to you as well. You get the last words before we are closing the session. So, but in terms of also the Gates Foundation supporting Swashakt, any view from you on the importance of evaluation to learn more about what works in collective enterprises?
Sure. So, let me try a mixture of this question and one of the earlier questions, that how do we move beyond interventions to, have partnerships that go beyond promoting organizations needing to support these interventions and they becoming sustainable. So, there are, if you see in the history of India, there aren't too many organizations that have grown big, collective organizations that have grown big, large, and become sustainable. And the biggest examples that come to mind are Amul and maybe the sugar cooperatives in India. These are perhaps two, right? And the sugar cooperatives, I think sugar is run more by men than women, and the farmers also more men than women. And perhaps in dairy, there are more women than men who actually do the dairy farming. So I think you need something like Amul, right? Now, the difference between what we are doing today and what Amul has done over the last century, whatever, 50 years plus, is that we are all trying to do interventions, which is what the question was. And these interventions will do a certain amount, but not everything. So somebody has to take the ownership of saying, and it was the government that did it, I think, or started it, that says that we will set up organizations like Amul, which will then have the FPO members as their, as the cooperatives in a way. I mean, I know a FPO is not a cooperative, but just an analogy, and their members. But even to do that, one of the reasons Amul succeeded, apart from their skills, is that you had NDDP, which said that we are giving funding, and every 5 years there's an NDDP plan, which has hundreds of crores, which said that we will go through the value chain and we'll provide money for the bulk chilling centers, etc., etc. So you could, the cooperatives and Amul could actually set up the whole value chain and not just depend on unprocessed milk, right? But then Amul had all the skills. They were saying, okay, Farmer X, you don't need to develop all these partnerships. We will do the processing, we will do the sales, we will do the marketing, we'll tie up with who we need to. So you kind of outsource the job of all the partnerships to Amul and all the skills to Amul. And the farm and NDDB ensured that there's enough money to build the whole value chain. And the farmer, of course, still needs to say that, look, how can we increase our productivity by either having hybrid cows or better vaccination to reduce death rates of brucellosis, etc., etc. So I'm not saying that there's no value addition at the farmer level. Yes, there is. But it's very clear the farmer level has to do their value addition of increasing the productivity of milk, right? And everything else is in a way done by Amul or by the intermediate players. So I think you need something like this, right? That, and then the money flows back. If there are profits, Amul shares the profits with the farmers. So you need multiple such organizations to do this. Now, can SRLMs play the role of these organizations which say, we will do the marketing, we will do the sales, we will do the branding of the products, we will build up the supply, the whole value chain, etc., etc. But unless someone plays this role, we are not then realizing the big potential, is my view.
Excellent. I think with those notes, very, very thoughtful comments and just really an excellent, very rich panel. I think there's lots there that I believe will lead to further conversations over the next years. I'm sure. But so with this, I would like to really thank all the panelists from both panels, in fact, in this track, for sharing their experience and their insights. We heard really diverse views, I would say, but also a few points rang true across all the conversations. One was around learnings from models of collective enterprises that need to be translatable. The second is around the strong fundamentals of collectives and that these should be established through partnerships. And so, basically, this has really given us a lot of food for thought. We look forward with our partners to take these insights and learnings forward in our women's empowerment initiatives, including the Swashad program in India, which will be sort of running and doing the implementation and evaluation over the next few years. So we hope to have also further discussions, and learnings as we go with all of you, and really sort of seeing what what evaluations can bring to the table, and whether we can learn more about what works, what doesn't. And what do we learn from failures that make us do things better next time? Several of you brought that up. So with that, I'd like to thank this excellent panel. Thank you very much, and to all the participants online for staying with us and providing excellent questions. And wishing you a very good weekend that is just around the corner, and happy holidays to all. So thank you very much, and thanks to the organizers.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Mary.
Thank you.
Thank you.